My name is Dennis Beatty, and as part of my goals for 2019, I decided I really wanted to start making some more tutorials and informational content about Elixir and about programming in general. And so this is kind of the first video in that series, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better at it as I go. But if you have any comments on this or any feedback for how I can improve it, please let me know so that I can continue to do so. So today I'm going to show you some tricks on how to handle output for Elixir command line tools. So if you've been working with Elixir for very long, you've probably seen like IO.inspect. You can add it to your pipelines to be able to easily debug output at like various stages of processing. So for example, I could have a function that would take in some variable. We'll just call it string, and then we can kind of create a pipeline using that string. So we could say string do something, and then do another thing, and then at any stage of this we could pop in a IO.inspect into this pipeline, and this would output the value that we get from this do something function before we get to this do another thing function. So it just helps us for debugging, for making sure that that we're doing things right. And so you might have also seen IO.puts, which IO.inspect is kind of built on top of. And so IO.puts will basically just let you output whatever you want onto a new line in the console. This can be pretty useful for debugging output as well. But what I'm excited to show you today is called IO.write. And so I've been working primarily in Elixir for about 2 years now, but somehow I'd never actually used this function until pretty recently. Basically what it does is it gives you the ability to print onto the same line as your last output rather than putting it onto a new line. So it lets you do some pretty cool tricks. So to start out with, I'm just going to show you how to create kind of a simple counter that will run in your terminal. Or sorry, a simple clock that will run in your terminal. So we're going to start. I'm going to create a clock.ex file, and so this will actually give me the Elixir syntax highlighting. Let me make this a little bigger so it's easier for you to see. So we're going to go ahead and create a clock module, and then we'll create a function inside of it that's just called start, and so this will start our clock. So this function is going to get the current UTC time, so we'll say time.utc now, and then we want to truncate that down. So what truncate does is it says only save the information that we want. And so for this clock, we're not going to want the milliseconds or microseconds. I feel like that just gets to be too much. So we'll tell it we just want the hours, minutes, and seconds. And so that's what this truncate will do. And then we're going to convert this into a string. So we can just say time.toString. And so that will create the time string that we want. So let's store that into a variable, and then we'll go ahead and this is kind of where IO.write comes in. So we'll say IO.write time string, and then we'll do a process.sleep, and what this does is it tells the program to just stop processing for however many milliseconds you specify. So 1000 will say stop for 1 second, and then we'll recursively call this again. And so this will basically just run on an infinite loop until we stop the program. So outside of this module, let's actually tell it to run clock.start, and this will actually, when we run this file, it will tell it to run this function, and that will start that infinite loop. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then we're going to just say Elixir clock.ex, and this should run the file. And so now you'll see it's creating these timestamps, and it's just printing them all on the same line. But that's not quite what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. You'll notice that it's printing the current time on the same line as the previous one, but we really want it to just replace the previous one instead. And so this is where special characters come in. You've most likely seen some special characters, like for instance you have the new line, and so you can put that into a string and it tells it to have a line break there. You might have also seen the tab, which is just the /t, and that tells it to put in a tab right there. But we're going to talk about one today called the Carriage Return. And so in this IO.write, let's make this, convert this to a string, and then we will interpolate that. But then at the front of it, we're going to add this carriage return special character. And so what the carriage return does is it will return the cursor to the beginning of the current line. So basically when you use it, you can replace text on the current line. So let's go ahead and save this and we'll run it. I'm going to clear out this terminal. I'm actually going to make it a little bigger so you can see it a little easier. And then I'll scale it down a bit. But let's go ahead and then just run that same command. And you'll see that now it's actually replacing what was already there. And so this kind of creates a fairly usable clock in the terminal. The one problem is this is UTC time. So you'll notice my current actual time is 12:04. And so if we want, we can actually set the time zone on that time, and then we'll be able to have the current time in the current time zone. But I'm not going to bother with that in this video. Instead, I'm going to show you a couple other applications of this IO.write. So we have this clock, but let's go ahead and try something new. So we're gonna make a countdown, and so basically it's going to just start at 10 and then count down to 0, and when it reaches 0, we'll print out that it's done. So to do this, I'm gonna go ahead and save this one as count.ex, and then we'll just create a module called count, and then let's just have it have a function inside of it called count as well, and so that will take the current count, and then we'll print it out and decrement it. So let's use the IO.write again. And we will add our carriage return this time and print out that current count. And then what we'll do is we'll call the same function again, but with the current -1. And so that will actually run that countdown. And then we want to actually print out that it's done. So let's add another definition of count up here. But let's use pattern matching to say when it reaches 0, then we want to actually print out that we're done. So we'll just say IO.puts done. And then because we're not calling the count again, that will say to actually stop what we're doing. And so then I'm also going to put a process.sleep right here, just like we did before. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller, so it'll just be 1/4 of a second. And then let's actually run this. So we'll just start by saying count.count10. Okay, so then we'll come back to our terminal, and we can say Elixir count.ex, and this should run that countdown. So you see that it counted down, but you may have noticed, let's actually, to make this a little simpler to see, I'm going to put a new line right here. And so let's try that one more time. So you'll notice that there's that 0 that stays there. And so the 0 from the 10 never goes away. And so that's kind of different from what we're expecting. That's because when we use the carriage return, we're telling it to overwrite what's already there, but only as far as we actually write over it. So if we don't supply a character to replace the one that's already there, it'll just leave it there. So we're going to need to add some blank spaces to overwrite the end characters, in case the total number of characters goes down at all. Since this is simply a countdown from 10, we can just add a single space to the end, just because we know what it's doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But if we were to allow users to input whatever value they wanted, we would need to programmatically infer how many spaces to add. But again, I'm not going to bother with that in this video, but we'll run that again. And it's, so it moves the cursor an extra space forward, but it does make it so that then we don't have that 0 just hanging on there. So that's most of what I wanted to show you, but I kind of want to end this video by showing you one of the coolest applications for this. This example is going to be a little bit more difficult to follow probably, but basically what we're going to do is write a simple progress bar that you can use for a CLI tool. So my friend Trevor Fenn, he's one of the guys I work with at Podium, and he implemented this in Ruby, and so I've just kind of ported it over to Elixir for this example. But let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to save this one as progress.ex. And so we're going to start by just creating a progress module, and we'll give it a function called bar. So let's have bar receive 2 parameters. It'll take in the count, so how far it's gotten, and then the total. So this will be the total number of items that are being processed, and then the current item that it's on. And so we're actually going to go ahead and add a private function as well called %complete. And so this will take in that same count and total, and then we'll calculate how far along we are. So let's start by dividing the count by the total, and so that gives us the actual percentage, or the decimal percentage, but then we'll multiply that by 100, and so that gives us kind of a more human readable percentage. And then finally, let's round that to the nearest hundredth. And so basically that will just make it so that no matter how long that float gets, it'll always only have 2 decimals on it, so that it doesn't take up too much space on the screen. And so I'm actually going to change this to be a module attribute, like a constant, so that we can easily change that later. So let's call that rounding precision 2, and then replace this with rounding precision. And that just makes it so we can easily change that later if we want to. So now that we have the %complete, let's go ahead and use that. %complete. Pass in the count and total. So basically how the progress bar is going to work is we're going to have 2 different Unicode characters that we're going to use. So one is going to be this this character that's like a filled in box, and then the other is going to be this character for a halftone box. And so then we can have kind of this halftone box symbolize how big the total is going to be, and then this filled in box can show how far we've gotten so far. So I'm going to create another module attribute, and we'll call it progress bar size. and that'll just say how many characters long the progress bar should be. So I'm just going to say 50 for now to kind of simplify the math as we're going through this. So to figure out how many percentage points each character is worth, I'm going to go ahead and divide 100 by the progress bar size. And so I'll just call this divisor. Maybe not the best name, but I'll come back to that. And so in this case, that's basically just going to say that each character that we print out, each one of these, is worth 2% of the total. And so then we'll calculate exactly how many of each character we should write to the line. So we can say completed count equals percent divided by the divisor. And then I'm going to go ahead and round this because we need it to be kind of a full number. We can't really display partial characters. So then to get the incomplete count and know how many of those to display, we'll just say progress bar size minus the completed count. So then let's create a new function. We'll call it repeat. And basically what we're going to want to do is basically create a string with the specified number of characters that it should have in it. So we'll have this repeat function take in a count and then the character. To make it a little more reusable, we can just make it a string. And so we'll create a range from 1 up to the count. And so then we'll take that and we'll map over it. And for each iteration of that map, we'll just say take in whatever. And because we don't care that much about the current number, but we just want to then print out that that character and add it to our list. So basically this gives us a list of characters of the length that we've specified. And so then we can just say enum.join, and that will take that list and put it into a string. Then I'm going to create, so the one thing about using ranges is if we pass in a 0 here, this will actually still be, it will still create one iteration of that character because the difference between 1 and 0 is there. And so we're going to want to use a guard clause to then say when the count is less than 1, we're just going to return an empty string. So that way we're only putting out those characters when we're supposed to. Okay, so now we have to actually write the piece that will generate the full progress bar. So let's start by up here writing in the repeated completed characters. So we'll say repeat completed count, and then give it this character. Okay, and then we're going to do the incompleted characters. So I'll just do kind of the same thing, incomplete count, and then this halftone box. Okay, and then finally, just to make it like a little bit prettier and more usable, let's in parentheses add kind of the percent complete that we are. And so that'll just make it so that, yeah, you'll have this progress bar, but you can also watch the percentage as it goes up or down. Ideally, it's just going to be going up, but that depends what you end up doing with it. Okay, so we basically have this progress bar function that creates this string for us. And so now let's go ahead and actually use it. So outside of the module, let's say that we have a total of 50 tasks that need to be run. And so let's call an enum.each with a range of 1 up to that total, and then we'll take the current task is what we're calling it, and then let's write to the console. So we'll start with that carriage return character that we've talked about, and then we will call progress.bar and pass in the current task and the total number of tasks. And so that will generate the progress bar and write it to the console. And then let's go ahead and sleep for 50 seconds to kind of make this not go by instantly. And then we'll end our each loop, and then we'll call IO.write with a new line at the end so that we move the cursor onto the next line. And that should do everything that we need. So I have a plugin that will automatically run the Elixir formatter on any Elixir files that I use, and so it just did that. That was kind of that weird jump you saw. So now I'm going to go ahead and run this progress.ex, and we have that warning we should probably get rid of on line 19. But otherwise you kind of saw that progress bar run. I'll do it one more time, but it's very smooth and makes it for a really cool experience. So there you have it. Pretty simple, pretty cool. If you end up using it somewhere, please let me know. You can find me on Twitter at DNSBTY, or on the Elixir Slack group with the same name, or you can just let me know in the comments below. I'm hoping to put out more videos like this, so if you're interested, please like the video and subscribe to my channel so YouTube will let you know when they come out. Thanks for watching.